was always a wild, loose kid in my neighborhood. I just always went for mine. I maintained myself. I knew how to hustle, and I definitely wasn't no punk.
These little running around like I wasn't brought up. I was brought up toting slammers. Like, so my belt had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like
the first game, my nigga Punch Jim was popping, homie. Capo, I still fuck you already know. Shout out to Melly and everybody. I still fuck with my in Harlem.
The streets are buzzing after footage allegedly surfaced showing Jim Jones getting checked by none other than Brooklyn's own Raw Diggs. And according to those who were there, it wasn't just a casual exchange. It was a straight-up reality check that had the whole block watching. What was supposed to be a brief link-up reportedly turned into a heated face-to-face confrontation that left Jim Jones looking uneasy in front of a crowd that didn't miss a single second of what went down.
I'm from the era where we sold the drugs, we didn't use them per se. That was the quote.
Sources close to the situation claim the argument got so tense that onlookers had to step in before things got physical. But by then, the damage was already done. The clip, which allegedly shows Raw Diggs calling Jim out about long-standing street talk, is being passed around like wildfire, and fans are calling it one of the most embarrassing moments of Jim's career. To really understand how this happened, you have to know the history between these two names. Raw Diggs isn't just a random figure. He's a Brooklyn legend, known both for his rap skills and his reputation in the streets long before he ever touched a microphone. His name carries weight, especially in the same neighborhoods where respect is everything. Jim Jones, on the other hand, has always prided himself on being one of Harlem's hardest, a hustler turned rapper who built Dipset into a movement. But the tension between Harlem and Brooklyn has always been there, quietly brewing beneath the surface. And when egos collide in that kind of energy, it only takes one word for things to explode.
Blood, from this day on, when you see us throw it up, you be putting way more work in than half these bloods that be out here and things like that. So you the homie now. When you see us throw it up.
That's exactly what reportedly happened here. According to multiple witnesses, the argument started after Raw Diggs confronted Jim Jones over old claims he made about affiliations and loyalty. The word is that Raw had been hearing for years about Jim using names and stories that didn't add up, and when the two crossed paths, Raw wasn't about to let it slide. One insider said Raw's exact words were along the lines of, "Don't speak on what you ain't lived," while others said he questioned Jim directly about past statements tying himself to certain street legends. Whatever was said, it clearly struck a nerve because Jim reportedly tried to defend himself, saying he always showed respect to Brooklyn and never claimed anything false. But Raw wasn't buying it, and that's when things got loud. What makes this even crazier is how fast it spread. Within hours, word of the confrontation was all over social media, with fans and fellow artists weighing in. Some called it a Brooklyn versus Harlem moment, while others said it was deeper.
They allege that Heron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug-dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in three attempted murders.
A long overdue call out of rappers who blur the lines between street life and image. For years, Jim Jones has faced accusations of exaggerating his background, especially from those who knew him before fame. Raw Diggs, being who he is, reportedly saw this as a moment to set the record straight. The crowd watching wasn't just random fans, it was people from both sides, the kind of audience that makes or breaks reputations. And when Ross stepped forward and spoke his mind, the silence in the air said it all. By the time the confrontation ended, Jim reportedly walked off without saying much else, surrounded by his entourage. Ross stayed behind, still talking to the crowd, reportedly saying, "Ain't no fake talk out here. We checkin' everything that ain't real." That quote alone went viral. Whether or not the full footage ever surfaces, the story itself has already done its damage. Because in the streets, perception is everything, and right now, the perception is that Jim Jones got pressed in front of the people he least wanted to look weak in front of. The fallout from this confrontation has been massive. Social media has turned the moment into a full-blown event, with memes, commentary, and even rappers reacting. Some fans are treating it like another viral hip-hop beef, while others see it as a serious shift in how Jim Jones is viewed by the streets. Over the years, Jim has built his entire image on being authentic, a street general who transitioned from hustling in Harlem to leading one of New York's most iconic rap collectives. But when someone like Raw Diggs checks you publicly, especially in a setting that's raw and unscripted, it shakes that image to its core. This wasn't just a social media diss. It was a real-life confrontation that people witnessed firsthand, and that kind of energy hits different. Many believe this confrontation has been brewing for a while. The tension reportedly stems from past interviews where Jim mentioned certain street names and affiliations that didn't sit right with people who were actually from those blocks. Raw Diggs, known for protecting the authenticity of Brooklyn's street legacy, allegedly took offense to what he saw as misrepresentation. The rumor is that he'd been waiting for the right time to address it face to face. And when that moment came, Raw didn't hesitate. Some even claim he had words ready, not out of hatred, but out of principle. In his eyes, the streets and the music game are two different worlds, and if you're going to cross between them, you'd better come correct. People who were there say the energy was tense from the jump. Jim pulled up with his usual confidence, but Raw's tone reportedly changed everything. He wasn't loud or aggressive at first. He was calm, direct, and serious. But as the conversation escalated, the tone shifted. Witnesses described Jim trying to diffuse the situation by saying it was all love, but Raw made it clear that love and respect aren't the same thing. That's when Raw allegedly said, "You talk like you built the code, but the code built you," a line that's now being quoted all over the internet. Online, the debate has become polarized. Some people are defending Jim, saying he's always repped Harlem and never pretended to be from Brooklyn or any other borough. Others are siding with Raw Diggs, saying his reaction was justified because too many rappers use street credibility as a marketing tool without actually paying respect to those who lived it for real. In an era where authenticity is currency, moments like this carry serious weight. For Jim, this isn't just a viral moment. It's a blow to his credibility, and in hip-hop, that can cost more than money. What's interesting is how quiet Jim has been since the story blew up. Normally, he's quick to address rumors or clap back when his name is in headlines. But this time, there's been silence. No statements, no social media posts, no denials, just silence. That alone has people talking. Some believe he's trying to handle things privately, while others say the silence is proof that the rumors might be true. Either way, it's clear that Raw Diggs' words hit a nerve, because the one thing Jim's never been accused of before is backing down from confrontation until now. To fully understand why this moment matters, you have to look at who Raw Diggs really is and what his name represents in New York street culture. Before rap, Raw was known in Brooklyn for his leadership and for commanding serious respect. His reputation wasn't built on internet buzz. It was built on presence, loyalty, and survival. That's why, when he speaks, people listen. For him to check someone like Jim Jones, who's known for moving with confidence and power, says a lot about the shifting balance between the old street codes and the image-driven hip-hop world. This wasn't just a confrontation between two men. It was a clash between authenticity and performance, between the streets and the industry. Raw Diggs' story has always carried weight. His name was synonymous with Brooklyn long before social media existed. And even after years of silence and controversy surrounding his past, his legend still carries an unspoken authority. So when he confronted Jim, it wasn't just about petty beef, it was about principle. Raw reportedly told him, "You keep shouting street names in your raps, but you don't check in with the ones who made those names mean something." That line hit home for a lot of people who've been saying the same thing about modern rap culture. Too many artists borrow from real-life street stories, but leave out the respect and context behind them. Jim Jones has always been vocal about his roots, but that same energy that helped him build his career is now working against him. The Dipset movement was born from Harlem pride. Flashy but gritty, stylish but real. Over time, Jim turned that energy into influence, branching into fashion, business, and television. But the streets never forget, and they don't care how much fame you've earned. All that matters is whether your actions still match your words. That's why Raw's confrontation hit so hard. It stripped away the fame, the jewelry, and the cameras, leaving Jim face to face with the one thing that can't be faked: real respect. The reaction from Harlem has been mixed. Some locals are defending Jim, saying outsiders are trying to test him because of his status. Others admit that Harlem's connection to Brooklyn has always been complicated, and this situation might make things worse. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Raw's name is being celebrated again. People are saying he stood up for something real, reminding everyone that in the culture of respect, nobody's above being checked. Online, the situation has reignited conversations about authenticity in hip-hop. As one fan wrote on X, "We used to love rappers who told real stories. Now they tell stories about other people's lives." That sentiment sums up why this moment matters. It's not just about Jim Jones or Raw Diggs. It's about what happens when the image of a gangster collides with the reality of the streets that birthed that image. As the story continues to spread, industry insiders are starting to weigh in, and the implications go far beyond just one confrontation. Some say this moment could mark a turning point for Jim Jones's image in hip-hop. While he's managed to reinvent himself multiple times, from rapper to businessman to media personality, credibility has always been his foundation. Without that, everything else crumbles. And the fact that this happened in front of witnesses, in public, makes it nearly impossible to downplay. In an age where everything ends up online, the streets don't need official footage to form an opinion. Word of mouth alone is enough to rewrite reputations overnight. Meanwhile, Raw Diggs' name has re-entered the conversation in a major way. Even though his own past is filled with controversy, this situation has reminded everyone that his influence never really left. In a culture that values power and authenticity, Raw's move was seen by many as a statement, a reminder that the streets still have a voice, even in an era dominated by social media fame. People are even calling this confrontation the return of real energy, saying it's a sign that certain figures are reclaiming their respect after years of watching rappers glamorize a lifestyle they never truly lived. What makes the situation even more intense is how it's reportedly affecting Jim's inner circle. There are whispers that some of his longtime associates are distancing themselves from the drama, hoping not to get caught in the crossfire. Others are pushing for Jim to respond publicly, believing that silence makes things worse. But insiders claim that he's weighing his options carefully, because one wrong word could make things spiral further. If he denies it happened, the witnesses will speak. If he admits it did, he risks looking vulnerable. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation. For Raw Diggs, however, this confrontation has solidified his reputation once again. Whether fans love him or fear him, everyone respects the fact that he stood on principle. In a time when most conflicts play out through tweets and subliminal shots, Raw's approach was old school, direct, face-to-face, and unapologetically real. That's why people are talking about this moment like it's more than just gossip. They're treating it like a statement about where hip-hop is headed. In the end, this story isn't just about two men. It's about what happens when the blurred line between entertainment and reality finally snaps. Jim Jones might still be a respected artist with hits and influence, but after this, the streets will never look at him the same. Raw Diggs, meanwhile, has reminded the culture that no amount of fame can override authenticity. And as long as that principle stands, moments like this will keep happening. Reminders that the game may change, but the code never does. Now that the dust is settling, the real question is what comes next for Jim Jones and Raw Diggs, and whether this confrontation will fade away or spark something even bigger. From the outside looking in, it's clear that this wasn't just about personal tension. It was about what's left of street honor in an industry that often profits from it. The aftermath has already turned into a ripple effect across social media, with rappers, street figures, and even podcasters dissecting what it means when someone with Raw's credentials calls out a name as big as Jim's. This wasn't a diss track or an interview soundbite, it was real life, and it's forcing everyone to rethink how much of rap's street narrative still holds true in 2025. Some believe this could be a wake-up call for Jim Jones to reevaluate his public image. Despite the criticism, he's still a hustler at heart, and hustlers adapt. There's talk that he might address the situation subtly through music, using a track to reestablish his dominance and remind people of what he's done for Harlem and hip-hop as a whole. Others think he'll take a different route, avoiding direct confrontation and focusing on rebuilding his brand quietly, letting time and success speak louder than the rumors. But even if Jim finds a way to move forward, this incident will linger as one of those defining street moments that people whisper about for years. The kind that shifts energy and reshapes reputations. For Raw Diggs, though, this was a return to form. After years of being out of the public eye, his name is back in headlines, and not because of drama, but because of respect. In many ways, this moment reintroduced him to a younger generation that might not have known his story. the story of a man who earned his reputation the hard way, long before social media could boost someone's credibility. For those who came up hearing his name whispered in Brooklyn, this confrontation only reaffirmed what they already knew. Rod Diggs doesn't play about authenticity, and he doesn't let anyone, no matter how famous, rewrite the street's legacy. The wider conversation this sparked might be even more important than the confrontation itself. Hip-hop has always walked a tightrope between storytelling and survival, between art and reality. But when those lines blur too much, moments like this happen. The culture still values authenticity, but the definition of real has changed. Fame used to be proof of respect. Now it's often proof of who can sell the best version of their image. Rod Diggs challenging Jim Jones brought that issue back to the surface, exposing how much tension still exists between the industry and the streets that built it. And the internet, as always, amplified it to the world, turning a neighborhood moment into a cultural debate. At the end of the day, both men represent two sides of the same coin, one who turned street ambition into global fame, and another who stood firm on principle, no matter the cost. Their paths crossed in a moment that reminded everyone watching that no matter how much the game evolves, respect will always be the true currency. Whether or not this leads to reconciliation, diss tracks, or simply silence, one thing is certain. This moment will be remembered as the day Rod Diggs checked Jim Jones in front of the hood and the world stopped to watch. If you're locked in with this story, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to FameFlux for more raw exclusives, deep dives into hip-hop's biggest moments, and the real stories behind the legends.